We are live. Welcome, everybody. See a bunch of you in the threadcast already. Just get some things. Yeah, Falcon said interesting title. Yeah, we'll get into all that. We will get into all that, trust me. Simple game, welcome in. I know you've been busy with the game development. Ben, I'm not sure where Mitch is. I shot him a message this morning. I haven't talked to him since yesterday, so uh he may have just forgotten or something. If he replies to me, I'll bring him on. Uh but otherwise, little solo AMA. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to start dropping them while we wait for everyone to get in. All the announcements are already out and live. Obviously, the topic today is obviously DHF related, so we'll talk about that, and then obviously we can talk about some other things. Ben said he might have gotten taken up by border control. I don't think so. He's he is a purebred all around American. He's probably just out enjoying the Floridian weather. I know I can't relate to that. Man, welcome in. Ben Hass. Have I ever owned a German car? I have. I have. Simple game. The game industry is collapsing like crypto. Being self-funded gives you room to maneuver. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the obviously bootstrap development. You don't have to really answer to anybody or worry about what people tell you. So I'm a big fan of building things in that way as well. So I'm glad to hear that you're maintaining your vision and don't have to worry about that. African man said Cal came early today. Yeah, usually, I mean, it's always supposed to start at noon Eastern. Usually Mitch and I are busy chatting in the pre-show, so that's why we're always late. We're always chatting about real estate and crypto and all of the things. Speaking of which, crypto is taking a nosedive. I know we don't really have Mitch out there or up here to tell us about the crypto markets and what he you know what he thinks of them. So uh Alex asked, what are your thoughts on putting forth a burn proposal in the DHF? Its purpose would be to reduce the hive supply. Well, I don't know if that I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. I guess it kind of depends on how you want to look at it. The DHF, so when Hive obviously forked from Steam, that's where the money came for the DHF. So I know that there's differing viewpoints on that. Obviously, it was a community agreed thing to do. Um, and you didn't have to come to Hive after the fork if you didn't agree with it. So the community kind of agreed to do that. So burning anything out of the DHF would essentially just be to kind of roll back either some or all of what happened when Hive forked from Steam. So, I think that the DHF can be a really positive force for good on Hive. It obviously just requires, you know, proper usage. I think the right people need to be getting funded, and I think the right kind of community tools need to be in place for, decentralized funding to really take place. Um, there can be a lot of debate around how things are done now and who's funded now. And I think that debate is pretty healthy for the ecosystem. And we can obviously dive into the things that have happened around INLEO's proposal and what's been kind of revealed on that front. Actually right before we went live, a new proposal went live for INLEO. Essentially just the proposal itself hasn't changed, but the some of the content of the proposal changed. So the proposal is still the same, but we've obviously made some changes to it, which we'll get into. Simple Game said he's got to run real quick. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Um, just open, love to see it get together. Yeah, we every Tuesday at noon Eastern. Same place, same mic. Let's see. I saw a good question. Manu Photos asked, so I can add INLEO onboarding tech to Hive peer-to-peer. Yeah, so it's a good segue into the changes that we made for the Hive DHF proposal for INLEO. So, I've been talking to a lot of different stakeholders and people that are people that are influential on Hive, let's just say, about the INLEO proposal and their feedback and what we could do better. And a big piece of the feedback is, some people don't want to see anything closed source getting funded on the DHF. Obviously, that is a bit of an issue, or at least ironic, that there are other projects on the DHF that are fully closed source and they are getting funded, even by some of the same people who say that they don't want to see closed source things get funded. So that part of that leads me to ask, well, clearly that's not your only issue because these other projects have your vote or are funded, even though they're closed source. So there must be some other issue. So after a few other discussions and just kind of diving deeper, asking more questions, uh, I wanted to get to the root problems of what we can solve in order to get, the funding that we need to keep pushing forward on these collaborations. Because I think these collaborations are obviously good for INLEO and they're amazingly good for Hive. Hive really needs more users and investors and attention in general. So, I just wanted to get to the root of all these issues, and one of them being I was just kind of tired of hearing that the closed source thing was an issue. So I am, I'm willing to take feedback, and as you guys know, I'm willing to change the approach when necessary, or when it seems like it's beneficial to INLEO, and INLEO's future. Um, so, while I've been pretty opposed to open source in the past, for a lot of different reasons. One big reason is I think open sourcing too early can be a problem. When technology is not finished and it's being continuously developed, sometimes it is better to have a singular centralized direction to it. And anyone, I know Simple Game was in here earlier. Anyone who's built anything of any magnitude is well aware that building in a sandbox where you have full control over things can lead to better innovation and development and faster iteration because you have one person steering the ship. When you start having a lot of different collaborators, that's where things can get a little tricky, and can actually get you tied up. So you'll see that with certain foundations and whatnot in the crypto space, especially where the the ability to innovate and develop is actually stunted by being open source in some senses. I wouldn't say in every sense, but some of them for sure. So that's been a big reason for me to keep things, specific things at least closed source. Um, so that being said, after all these discussions, that and like two other points became kind of clear to me as like the key blockers for us. So, at this point, I'm willing to, try a different approach with these same people and say, okay, if we address your three main issues, and I think we have, in the new proposal, and you guys can go read it for all the details, then can we move forward? Because in my opinion, holding these collaborations up, holding up the progress that we've made with the Dash onboarding, and then obviously all these, meetings and people I've talked to, in the space to onboard their ecosystems to Hive, I don't want to lose that momentum. And we need to keep pushing forward on the collaborations if we want that momentum to stay with us. So I decided, I spent a couple days, obviously you guys have probably seen, but I spent a couple days kind of being quiet about the DHF stuff. Um, And I spent a lot of time thinking about how we wanted to move forward. And one of the things I decided to do, was open source all the onboarding technology for INLEO, and open source it to Hive. So there's a few things in this proposal, and we can dive into the details. One of the and I'm seeing a good comment from Ahmad Manga. I can see that open source can stall development, but it can also make it faster if the decision making on the main fork is still under your control. Yeah, it can. It can. It depends on the commitments you've made to maintain the repos. Because essentially, like if you have an open source repository, for example, and you've promised to for example, bring in other people's branches to the main branch and integrate them, that can divert your attention uh now I need to spend some time, reviewing this branch and integrating it and making sure that all the dependencies are in order. And that can take away from what your kind of core path is for the main branch. So that's been a big thing for me. Um, so, solving for that issue, I think, is mainly to say, our focus is going to be the main branch. If someone has, a suggestion and we decide to integrate it, that will be, our decision to make. Otherwise, they obviously can take the main branch and make their own, they can develop from that branch on their own. But you definitely need to be careful about commitments you make to maintaining other branches in addition to the main branch. So I don't want to get caught in a scenario where we're maintaining all these different branches and, people are constantly coming to us and creating different dependency problems. I have a vision for where things are headed, especially when it comes to onboarding technology. And in that post, I talk about some of that stuff. So, INLEO is going to stay focused on our main branch. But I think that part of the reason that I'm specifically open sourcing the onboarding technology is, one, the proposal is about onboarding and marketing anyways. And two, it is kind of a clear path forward. There's, people could say, okay, well, why don't you integrate this wallet? And I can say, okay, well, we're going to integrate these wallets next because this is the roadmap, but I will consider that wallet as well. So it is kind of it is kind of important to set those expectations. So I set them pretty clearly in the proposal. Manga also asks, is the open sourcing dependent on the proposal's success, or are you going to open source it regardless of the approval? So yeah, like I said, you guys can read for all the details on that proposal. But one of the main things I talked about in there is that I have seen other proposals on the DHF that have promised open source, and there's been a few issues with them. Either not getting to the end line, and then nothing ends up happening, and the DHF kind of loses out. And also just people kind of dragging out the timeline for open sourcing, or under delivering and over promising. Um, so I put in the proposal that if we are funded for 60 days, the day that we get funded, as long as 60 days pass and we're funded for all 60 days, I will open source the onboarding tech. And it actually is going to take time anyways, so it's not like, okay, day one we can just open source it anyways. So it is going to take a little bit of time. So I'm giving the team, 60 days to open source everything. And I'm not going to just say, okay, well, we need the whole year of funding in order to open source, which I have seen other projects do on the DHF. And I don't necessarily agree with that approach. So it's kind of a good faith thing where, technically 60 days could go by and we could, people can unvote and then say, okay, well, now we got your open source tech and, screw you. And we'll just take it and run. And now you're not funded anymore. So that's a possibility, but I don't think that that's going to happen personally. Our proposal is not about open sourcing our technology. The open sourcing of the technology is in addition to the original proposal. So we're still doing the collaborations, and that is still the primary focus of the proposal. Open sourcing it is kind of like a good faith thing and saying, and actually I said it in the post, which I'm just going to pull up so that I can just read it for you guys. But one of the main questions I got, which kind of made me rethink some of the approach, is if your goal is to grow Hive and bring maximum value in the form of onboarding new users, wouldn't it be better if your onboarding tech was open source and easy to implement across all Hive UIs? wouldn't it make the collaborative marketing campaigns 10 times more effective since new users can be funneled into any UI and see the same seamless onboarding experience as INLEO, essentially creating a Hive standard for onboarding? And honestly, that question does make sense. I mean, it's a logical thing to ask, and after thinking about it a little bit, I think that it's a decent approach to move forward with, and to say that we have created, in my opinion, the best onboarding experience that Hive has ever had, and it's only continuing to get better. I posted some screenshots in the proposal post, and I'm sure many of you guys um, have seen a lot of that stuff. Uh, but the real key, I think, is INLEO's onboarding experience has been over the years. I mean, this has been I think we developed the first Hive Lite accounts in 2020. So it's been 5 years of development essentially. And it's obviously gone through a lot of different iterations. We've gone back to the drawing board multiple times. But the current implementation is incredibly good. I mean, I hope you guys have tried it, and if you haven't tried it, you can definitely go to inleo.io/sign up and at least try it. The key store implementation is something I'm especially proud of, and how it works. I think it's really incredible. Um, so yeah, I think that open sourcing this onboarding tech and allowing projects like Manuphoto asks, will you be able to integrate it? And yes, you will. And obviously the proposal needs to go through. Otherwise, that's kind of like a key thing for me to do all of this. So we need that proposal to go through, but then, say it goes through by, the end of this week, and I would say 60 days from the end of this week, then you would be able to integrate. There's a key difference as well um, that I made in this proposal. So one other thing that I see a lot is that, and this is another kind of point I have when it comes to open sourcing things. Just because you open source the code base doesn't mean it actually makes sense for anybody else to run it. So, you can open source a code base like the onboarding protocols for INLEO, but it's actually relatively expensive to run. So, you need the servers, you need the resource credits to delegate to new users, and you need the account creation tokens, and then obviously you need to maintain all of that, which the maintenance is going to be the most expensive part. So, to address that, one of the things I decided is that, and I said it in the post, but open source is not enough. So we're also going to make it plug and play, which means that we're going to create open APIs where anybody can take those APIs, any other Hive UI, and seamlessly just tap into the API. And then they can obviously make their UI around that API. Um, and then on the back end, all the onboarding will still be handled by INLEO. So the account gets created using our account creation token, and then our resource credits get delegated to the new onboard to make sure that they have enough resource credits to engage on Hive. So now, I wanted to bring more value than just to say, okay, we're open sourcing the code base, here you go. I think that there's a much better way to provide value, and that's by creating APIs instead of just open sourcing. So in addition to open sourcing, you'll actually be able to just take these APIs and just really easily plug them in. So for example, a project like Hive Peer-to-Peer, you guys would be able to just take that API and say, okay, let's build a UI for onboarding. And then we just plug in the API, obviously the API key. And then now we can onboard new users, and we don't have to worry about account creation tokens. We don't have to worry about running a server. And we don't have to worry about resource credit delegations to those users. So INLEO's developed all of those things as part of our onboarding stack. It's obviously, like I said, taken a few years to build it to where it is, and we've made a lot of updates and upgrades to it along the way. One of the most recent upgrades has been the dynamic resource credit delegation system. So as a user becomes more active on Hive, when they post blogs or then they post threads, they get more resource credits over time. So that's all part of the onboarding experience when you sign up through INLEO, and with the open APIs that will all be a part of it as well. Um, yeah, Self-help virtuals is mentioning the transition from a light to a regular account. So there's about 8 different sign-up protocols that we've built. One of them is, my favorite one is the key store accounts. Obviously, I think they're superior to everything else, and I'm really happy with how they work. And I highly recommend that they get highlighted as the recommended. Like if you go to inleo.io/signup, we recommend it as the best way to sign up. I will continue to remind people that they should recommend it as the best way to sign up. That being said, there are other protocols we've built, like the light accounts. So you can sign up with a light account. It's like a one-click onboarding experience. It uses Web2 to sign you in. Kind of similar if you go to like another app of some kind and you hit like sign in with Google. It just allows you to sign in with one click. So obviously that's a light account. In the INLEO settings, we have a way for them to offboard from a light account to a full Hive account. So we'll have APIs for all of that as well. And then it'll be up to the UIs to handle how they want to do that. Manny Photo said an API service will be my choice. It is a way easier way to integrate any tech. But I do think open sourcing is a good thing. People can help improve the code, and devs working on INLEO can post about their contributions. Yeah, I mean, we will, like I said, we will both open source the code and create the APIs. I have a feeling that most projects on Hive are going to just opt to use the APIs, and not just not just the code base itself. Like I said, it's pretty resource intensive to run this stuff, especially on the maintenance side. So I think it just makes a lot more sense to have APIs for it. I think it creates a lot more value. If we wanted to do it in a really easy way, honestly, we could just open source the code. I mean, that would be just posting the code. Like that's a much easier thing to do than to create APIs. But like I said, my goal is to, and I said it in the proposal too, despite what some people may say, my goal is to provide the most value for Hive. And in my opinion, creating these APIs are a much bigger value add than just open sourcing the code base and saying, here you go. Ahmad Manga asked a good question. Will using the API register the users' referrals under my account on the INLEO dashboard? Because if something like that is possible, I have ideas. Yeah, so if they sign up on another UI, it won't count as an INLEO referral. So the referral system is separate from the onboarding system. The onboarding protocol is like literally like to onboard Hive accounts. The referral system is based around the Leo token and the INLEO UI, similar to how like to earn Leo, you got a post or thread from INLEO. Brando said, since I'm always hanging out solely on INLEO, I'd like to know what other projects are doing to onboard new users to Hive. I mean, there's some good projects out there that are doing some interesting things. I know Hive peer-to-peer obviously got Manu in the audience, so they're doing some cool stuff. Starkers is doing the distributor stuff to kind of onboard people to spend HBD. So there's some cool stuff happening out there in terms of people going out there and trying to onboard new users. I think there's a lot of limitations and a big bottleneck around signups. I think INLEO has solved that issue very well. So I understand the feedback that we heard where, people are, every other Hive UI essentially wants to integrate our onboarding stack. And we've kept it closed source and obviously don't have any APIs to tap into it. So, open sourcing this stuff and even more importantly, creating the APIs for them to just tap into it, plug and play, I think will maybe create a Hive standard for onboarding new users. And I think that would be a great thing for Hive in general. I think that Hive lacks a standard for onboarding people, and the INLEO, onboarding protocols could become that standard. So as part of the proposal, all this stuff goes open source, and then all the APIs get created. So perhaps, we're not far off, once that happens for other UIs to say, let's pick this up as the standard onboarding approach to creating new Hive accounts. I think that that's a very viable thing that could happen. And I would love to see it happen. And we would just need to, if a lot more users start getting onboarded, we'd obviously need to scale our resources. We'd need more Hive power so that we have enough account creation tokens and resource credits to delegate to all these people. But I'm more than willing to to, put up those resources if it means bringing more users to Hive. It's like I continue to say, everywhere that I talk about this stuff, but my goal is just to get more users. I think more users are the key to everything. IJATs, I'm not really sure. I'm not really familiar with Flux. African Man, INLEO's leading when it comes to onboarding newbies. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a result of two things. One, our onboarding technology, and two, our our approach to external communities and collaborating with them and doing all of those all that work that it takes. It's very time intensive and resource intensive to collaborate with other ecosystems. We need to develop a lot of technology to make it happen, but we also need to have open conversations and dialogues with all these different teams and people on those teams, and then obviously people within the communities. So it's a very resource and time intensive endeavor, and not just on the tech side. Self-help for Trolls said Leo's setting the standard for a lot of things. Whatever it is we don't like about Hive, we'll change it because we will change it. If others aren't convinced now, they will be as INLEO grows. Yeah, I mean, I think it's undeniable that a lot of people want our onboarding tech and think that it's really great. And I'm fully, with this proposal, and you'll see if you read it, we're open sourcing it and we're creating the APIs to make it available to everyone, even if you're not, you know, even if you don't want to go out and actually just integrate the technology from an open source standpoint, you can at least integrate it from an API standpoint. So I think that um, I think that that's a really great thing. So yeah, Flux. I've never heard of Flux either. Uh, Maybe it's an image model. I'm not sure. Carefree, the onboarding stack and APIs is a super huge value add to Hive. And it's not even the focus of the proposal. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's like I said, it's just another value add of our proposal. So if you actually go back to the original proposal, we cut the ask in half, and we also now are including open sourcing all of our technology for the onboarding and creating these open APIs. So so I think we're bringing a lot of value with the proposal, to be honest. Uh, wouldn't more projects bring more users? Projects need RCs and HP. Projects make tools. Projects create culture. Yeah, I mean, you want to onboard people and projects. I think onboarding, it's kind of like chicken and egg. Like you both need projects and you need users, because people aren't going to want to build projects if there's no users, and users aren't going to use if there's no projects. So you need both simultaneously, which is why INLEO's approach has really been to focus on these big ecosystems. Because you look at like Dash, for example, they're looking at how they can build some Hive technology as well. So a natural progression is you create an environment where ecosystems like Dash feel welcomed to Hive through an interface like INLEO, by giving them their own skin, their theme, et cetera, putting their token on the UI. And then by doing that, their whole ecosystem and community and developers and project managers are now all interested in Hive and learning about it. So that's the only way that things are going to grow. Ben says we need more use cases. Yeah, I mean, we need more use. It's like I just said, like we need more use cases and we need more users, because you can build all the use cases in the world, but if you don't have users, then there's no point. But if you have a bunch of users and not enough use cases, then the users are going to leave. So again, chicken and egg. You need both. Ahmad Manga, yeah, I mean, whole crypto market is really kind of just completely taking a dump. So. Ben said, will you open source Leo.voter? I'm assuming you mean the voting patterns of it. All that is open source. We talk about it a lot. No one will ever be happy when it comes to upvoting, though. So Um, Tass said Leo's ahead of everything because of what it is doing with data. That is the separator in the future. Yeah, I mean, not only are we doing, we have so many irons in the fire at any given time. Um, it's not just onboarding, it's not just AI, it's everything all at the same time. And Leo's been always, willing to adapt with the tides and change as we need to. So, um, yeah, I think what we're doing with data is really essential. You actually see that with Grok 3 that just got released, what X is able to do by having this real-time data is already, really blowing minds in the AI industry. So Grok 3 is starting to become one of the best AI models out there, and I think it's going to continue to be so because they've got that real-time data source through X. INLEO has that same real-time data source, albeit it is smaller. That being said, as Hive and as INLEO grows, that data source only gets more valuable, and we have a direct line into it. INLEO is doing a great leap forward in onboarding. It's the most efficient and quickest way to join Hive, and plus point, it makes it's highly rewarding. Yeah, thanks, Lord Shah. Yeah, I agree. I think our onboarding is really well is going really well and will do really well on all these different Hive UIs. So. Tokenized society, we don't control any liquidity pools on LeoDex. It's all related to my protocol and in the future, Thorchain, Chainflip, etc. Self-Help Patrol is everything everywhere all at once. I love that movie. It's a really good movie. Alex, I'm not familiar with their proposal, but I do agree. I think INLEO has always been a value for value, uh, you know, project. So we've always, kind of overpromised and over-delivered, in my opinion. Like you go back to like Project Blank and many of the things that we've talked about in the past in terms of delivering. Like I think one of the really early, really early kind of overpromise, over-deliver moments was the light account protocol, and making onboarding seamless. So kind of bringing that full circle because we did tell everyone we would create one-click onboarding and make it really easy to onboard and make it as easy as Web 2. And I think we delivered that in a huge way. So yeah. And then obviously with Project Blank, we were going to build, a microblogging platform, and we ended up building something much more than that. So, now we've got shorts and we've got blogs and we've got videos and we've got threads and premium and all these other things that we didn't have, really even designed from the get-go. So yeah, I'm on manga. We don't have the toxicity that X has. Yeah, that's true. For all your comments to make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think I'm pretty caught up. African man asked how you get your keys if you registered using Dash. You got your keys at the sign up process. And if you forgot to save them, you can use your seed phrase to restore your keys by using something like Hive Keychain, for example. You just plug your seed phrase in and then you can download any of your keys from there. Self-help patrols. The onboarding is going to make any future proposals much easier, so I think it's okay to, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not just about, conceding to certain things and whatnot. I think that this is possibly a new path for INLEO in the long run, which is to open source more of our technology. So we will, we will see. We'll see how this goes. If this goes well, then we may look into open sourcing other parts of INLEO as well in the future. So it's kind of an experiment. We haven't done much in terms of open source, so we'll see how this goes. So if this proposal gets pushed through, and then we end up obviously moving forward on the open source and then the open APIs side of things, perhaps INLEO's position on Hive changes a little bit to be more development oriented in terms of open source and open APIs in the future. And then obviously continuing our work to collaborate and onboard users, being our core focus. Welcome in, Rainbow Dash. Alex, I'm not really sure. I think that's all kind of on the 3Speak side of things in terms of thumbnails. I know that they kind of have certain image sizing requirements. Not sure what you mean with that question. Tass said, when news to Threads 2.0? So one of the things, along the open source side of things, I created a GitLab section for AI agents. So you guys can now request AI agents to be built. And then what we're going to do is attach Leo bounties to certain AI agents. And then if anyone in the community, like Ahmad Manga or might possibly, or anyone else who's experimenting with these AI agent developments, wants to build those things for the ecosystem, you'll be able to build them and then earn those bounties. So we'll see how that develops too. I saw Task put up a sports AI agent idea. I put up two different AI agent ideas. So once we kind of get a critical mass of ideas in there, I would love to see some of you guys in the community, if you're interested in learning how to develop these things. You can just kind of pick one and obviously earn a bounty if you can deliver on it. Leo AI is already here, just being trained, continuing the training. Yeah, thanks, Falcon. Falcon just dropped the link to the GitLab I just mentioned. So you can jump over to that GitLab and you can submit issue requests. Self-help Trolls said, "How's the language update part 2 going?" Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going well. So in case you don't know, we released the first iteration of this language update, which is to essentially translate the menu items using AI. So now you can switch your language and then the menu changes. The next iteration will actually it's a lot more intricate. It will translate any content on the UI. And if you have a conversation with someone and you each have your own language setting selected, it'll auto convert the threads or blog posts that you have going back and forth with each other. I guess it wouldn't really be blog posts, but the threads and the comments that you have back and forth with each other, it will translate them so that you can essentially have a two-way conversation in two different languages. So that also uses Leo AI. But yeah, we're kind of slowly rolling out these AI features, and you'll continue to see them. So the language update is actually a part of the AI updates. So like, this was Eric's idea, but we added like Pirate and Elvish and like Klingon, High Valyrian to the languages that you can choose from in the menu, which is kind of funny. But we can really do any language whatsoever because it's all AI based. So it's pretty fun on that front. More I'm not really sure, to be honest. It's a good question for 3Speak in terms of shorts. the Hive tuber said, are there direct incentives for developers that use the open source to build anything? Well, related to if you're asking about the AI agents, we will be attaching, some small Leo bounties to the agents. So for example, like if you build Taskmaster's AI agent, I may assign, a 5,000 Leo bounty from my own personal Leo stack in order to get that developed. And then you would submit the code open source to the GitLab repo. And then I would obviously review the code, and as long as it's up to par and can be utilized, I may ask for some changes, but then you'll earn the bounty. And then we'll actually integrate the agent onto the INLEO UI, and then under an agent button, anyone will be able to use it. Tokenize said we'll be reading all the content in Latin when it comes out. That's pretty funny. Yep, there will be bounties for that stuff. Yeah, the pirate theme is really funny if you guys want to try it. It's really funny. Keep the questions coming. I may jump off soon after this, after a few more questions, just because I feel like we've kind of covered everything, and obviously just being solo changes it a bit. Ahmad Manga, if you have anything specific feedback wise, just do a thread with hashtag feedback. So this, the translation uses AI, obviously to do everything. So AI is not always perfect, and there's cultural differences as well that AI doesn't pick up necessarily. So, yeah. Can we use automation system for the AI agents? I'm not sure what you mean, Falcon. The African man, it's about the agentic development, kind of creating a little open source agentic development on INLEO. Ben said, waiting on the Saxon translation of INLEO. That's pretty funny. I mean, in theory, we can add literally everything. Um, Rainbow Dash. I'm hoping we get an incentive not only to create new accounts, but also be active on one account. No free upvotes for new accounts, 1 month of free premium for new accounts, achievement system combined with multipliers. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think more of that needs to be in the hands of the community. I don't think what's lacking when it comes to retention is anything necessarily on the platform side. I think, the platform, you look at like X, for example, and other platforms, they're able to retain users because users come in and they make some friends and they, join some sort of community, and then they feel the desire to keep coming back. I think it's less on the platform side and more on the community side to retain people. So I've done things on the interface to try to make that easier and better, which is, for example, when you refer a user in, there's that whole section of the UI where you can track who you've referred in. You can click their profile and you can see how active they are, and you can engage with them and tag them and whatnot. So we've kind of built those tools there. It's up to you guys to retain, to retain people. Yeah, X retains people due to the massive network effects from Taskmaster. Yeah, it's, if we had more network effects here and the community was more active in retaining people, then I think people would naturally stick around. So it's kind of the community itself creates the retention. Exactly. Yeah, and the bugs have gotten a lot, significantly better amount of manga for sure. And that stuff comes with just honestly like feedback and development, and you guys know that you post feedback on stuff and then it gets fixed and we keep iterating and pushing forward. So if you guys could leave again, I'm gonna drop the link to the blog post. But if you guys could leave a nice comment on it, obviously give it a read and leave a nice comment. That'd be great. I will drop the link here. in the threadcast to the proposal. So that's the updated proposal. It talks obviously about the open source stuff, and the open APIs and whatnot. So just go head there if you can when we jump off the call, leave a nice comment. So we're obviously trying to, with the updates to this proposal, we are, responding to a lot of feedback that I've heard related to it. So we want the right people to see this and then obviously, feel that their needs and desires have been answered. iJets, it's a good question. Will the autonomous agents be buildable with Leo AI itself, or are we invited to use any AI model? You should use any AI model. So in the future, I think we'll have a section of the UI where you can actually ask Leo AI to build agents for you. But for now, I think you should just use whatever AI model you prefer, and we can just build a bunch of different agents. I think it's actually really good because now you've got like cool, diverse, you've got cool, diverse agents on the UI doing a lot of different things. So I think it's generally a good, it's generally a good thing. Morty just shared some t-shirts. These look pretty cool. When soon show t-shirts. Honestly, when soon show merch is a really good idea. Those look pretty sick too. You guys got a few more questions. I'll answer a few more and then jump out of here. I see Ahmad Maga's main thread on the feed about Leo being cheap at 2 cents. One thing is, I mean, the rest of the market's down 12%. Like Hive's down 12%, for example. Leo has not followed. So, while Leo is down, I think we kind of took a bigger brunt of the hit earlier on than other alts, and other alts are now starting to feel that pain. Lord Shah, why don't you create a vote-based proposal system similar to SPS on INLEO and ask users to vote based on Leo power? We'll know what to expect. Yeah, I mean, we've actually done stake weighted voting before using the polls. Um, so yeah. Yeah, Mod Manga, it's a completely rewritten post. So I would read it. If you haven't been updated since last week, I would definitely read it. It just got posted right before the AMA, and it's a lot of things change in it. I mean, the core tenet that we are asking for funds, and I think this is a good actual thing to actually cover. The core tenet is that we are still asking for funds to do the marketing and the collaborations. That's still the primary focus of it, but we are open sourcing the onboarding protocols themselves, and that's in kind of direct response to some of the things I've heard. Um, so yeah, we, open sourcing everything is kind of like I mean, honestly, and we don't have to get too much into it, but the cost of building the INLEO onboarding protocols is even more than we're asking for from the DHF. So it's not even like we're asking to be like paid back or something for developing these open source protocols. Instead of like, which I have seen from other, protocols out there, like they're asking for funds to actively develop technology that is open source for Hive, which is fine. But we've already developed this stuff. We've already put up the money. We've already spent the resources and the time to do it. What we're asking for is to now market it to a broader audience. But in addition to doing that, we will open source the tech as well. So it's like, we could just open source the tech and ask for the money and then pocket the money and say, well, we spent the money on open sourcing things. But that's not what we're doing. We've already spent the resources to build this stuff. Now we're just open sourcing it and asking for the resources to market it. Uh, Yeah, NAN is really interesting. I highly recommend diving into that. There's some really cool automations you can do there. Yeah, self-help for trolls, I would just continue to stay active. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, Mod, that's been a big thing for me when it comes to open source things and DAOs and whatnot. I mean, it can slow things down. So you need the right setup, um, and you need the right setup for a lot of things. Caleb Marvel, do I need more coffee or whiskey? Honestly, I need both. Definitely use more coffee. It's been a long start to 2025, so I'm not sure if it resonates through the video, but yeah, it's been a hectic 2025 so far. Looks like we may be out of questions. Um, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. Again, I will link the proposal one last time if you guys can go give it a read. This time I'll link the Peak D proposal link. So give it a read. I'm sure most of you guys or all of you guys have voted for it already. If you haven't voted, maybe consider voting with these changes. And we'll be spreading the proposal out to a bunch of different people on Hive. I know Eric already did. I sent it to a few people as well. So I know this is kind of in direct response to a lot of what I've heard. And yeah, hopefully things go well. I am pushing to get this done because again, we've got this momentum and I don't want to lose the momentum that we've got in terms of the collaborations and whatnot. So we need to maintain momentum and keep pushing forward. So give the proposal a read, leave a nice comment on it. And then if you've got any feedback on the proposal or anything else, you guys know what to do. Um, so thanks for joining this AMA. I will be around. I think we may be doing a chain chatter tomorrow. I'll keep you guys posted if we are. And then I know that I'm also doing a Dash podcast on Thursday. So I think that'll be Thursday, probably later in the afternoon. So I will keep you guys in the loop on that. I'm sure I'll put an announcement on Discord and a bunch of announcements on Threads and on X as well. So keep your eyes open for that. I also just realized I forgot to record the threadcast this entire episode. So the recording of this will not have the threadcast. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys either tomorrow or Thursday.